School for Field Studies, we're actually based just north of Boston in Beverly, Massachusetts. We've been in existence for over 40 years. We're very mission driven. And that is that shortly after the first Earth Day, a group of folks got together and decided to create a study abroad organization to educate the next generation of environmental leaders. And they believed that the best way to do so was to get college students out into the field around the world to learn good science so that they could then inform good policy through their field-based skills and creative solutions to the most pressing environmental issues of their time and the time currently. So we're in 10 locations around the world. Any of these locations would offer a semester option, both fall or spring. And then some of them also have summer options. Of course, you would want to work with your study abroad office at your home school, Brandeis in this case, to see what is approved and to work with them ahead of time to secure any necessary approvals, so you would see exactly how credits and financial aid would transfer. But anything that Earth offers, we try to reflect through our programming. So in the Turks and Caicos by the Atlantic Ocean, it would be marine studies, whereas in Bhutan and the Himalayas, it would be mountain ecology. But the framework of our academic pedagogy would actually be pretty much the same. So we're a very center-based model that basically means that you would be along with 20 to 24 other students, primarily from colleges and universities from across the country at one of our centers. So you would be in the Costa Rican rainforest in the upper right-hand corner, or in the lower right-hand corner in the Turks and Caicos by the Atlantic, or in Kenya in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro. They're in Panama, right on the edge of the Caribbean Ocean, and also the Panamanian rainforest. So it's a very residential experience. You are up close and personal with the other students, and very often our staff and faculty are living at the center, or at least very close to the center. So there is sort of like a residential feel to the program. So who lives at our centers? First, you would have a center director. She's basically in charge of everything, making sure the program runs, whether for a 100-day semester or for longer 8-week, longer summer sessions. Or you would be looking at 3 faculty members who are teaching the 3 main courses of a semester program. Sam, the student affairs manager, she's basically in charge of student health, safety, and security. Anything from setting a broken leg in the Serengeti to, I've heard, baking cookies early in the morning because she thinks the students are feeling a little homesick. A ton of support staff our students get to know really well. And then the facilities, the thing to know here is you are in some of the most biodiverse and iconic ecosystems of the world, but it is going to be more rustic than you're used to at Brandeis. So for instance, in TCI, there's only 1 freshwater shower a week. In Costa Rica, there's only cold water showers. Some of the food is a little limited in parts just because we're so far away from many major centers. The internet is usually a little slower, but again, Kilimanjaro's in your backyard. The Amazon rainforest in Peru is your backyard. So the students that go on these programs, they're expected to rough it a little bit, but you are getting a ton out of that experience if you're willing to do so. So academic-wise, pretty much of any of our options, you would be able to have the option of bringing back a semester worth of credits. Usually there are 3 core courses, 2 or more of the hard sciences, so ecology, NRM, natural resource management. And then 1 would be more of like a socioeconomic policy course or anthropology. And all that would lead up to your capstone directed research project. All of our programs for semester, except for Australia and Turks and Caicos, would have a short language and culture course as well. So we are known for our research. The common question I get from students is, do you need to have field research experience to do one of these programs? The answer is no. Most of our students have not tracked elephants in Tanzania. They have not counted cordyceps in Bhutan. They've not gone into the danger in Australia. So the benefit of the program is you are doing rigorous field-based research, but it's all being mentored by a SFS faculty member. And in the first 10 weeks of any semester program, you are learning a lot of the research skills as part of those first 3 courses to then pursue the 4 weeks of directed research. It's very community-based, so you cannot go into this program and just study at the very end whatever you want. It would have to be something that we've outlined is of importance to the local community. The benefit of that is there is this skeleton of research, this framework, so that once you go in, we know exactly what you need to pursue to collect data. And it's also a form of reciprocity. So at the very end, you would actually present your research back to the community. So in a place like Bhutan, students have presented to the Bhutanese Senate, Bhutanese Minister of Interior, Bhutanese Minister of Forestry. In Turks and Caicos, they presented to government ministers flying in from Grand Turk. So you would not just receive credit for this research project. You would not just learn these valuable skills, but you would actually have a positive impact on these local communities so that they could have a more sustainable future. So, quick overview, we're this nonprofit environmental study abroad organization. So you would be going abroad to one of these 10 locations, bringing back credits, primarily focused on the environment. So half our students are biology, environmental science, environmental studies, but the other half are from the full spectrum of academia. We have 22 programs, 10 locations around the world. So whatever ecosystem that you're eager to study, we should be able to offer. Both semester and summer options, tons of alumni around the world, ready to sort of help you out in your post-career plans. So admissions, and this will be true for pretty much any provider, but it's not like applying to undergraduate education. So it's very often rolling admissions. So I encourage every student, meet your internal college, university, study abroad requirements, meet with your study abroad office early in the process. Make sure you hit all of the deadlines that your university requires. And at the same time, you'll be applying to us, or once you're approved, applying to us, and doing so early is in your benefit because it is rolling admissions. So there's not one set deadline when everyone is reviewed. Spaces are filled on a rolling process. And for a semester program of our 10 locations, I would say on average, maybe 8 of them definitely fill months in advance. And that will likely only increase with COVID limiting our capacity. So if I were to guess now, like you could see pretty much every fall 21 or spring 22 program filling. So applying early definitely is in your interest. Again, unlike applying to undergraduate, you're likely only applying to like this one program or one provider. You're not applying to like 12 or 15 different options. And if you have questions to narrow that down again, email me or work with your study abroad office. We try to give out enough financial aid to make it cost equivalent to staying at your home campus. That's our mission as an environmental nonprofit. And working one-on-one with an admissions counselor. So as part of your application, you'll likely have this 20 to 30-minute interview with our admissions counselor. They're all alumni of the programs, so that you can ask these sort of like nitty-gritty questions about the program. And it's also for us to like make sure that this is the right option for you because it's not for everyone. So I'll give a quick overview of some of our programs, starting with Australia. So Australia is maybe our most remote center. You're a 20-minute bus ride from a town of 1,000 people. So you're a 20-minute bus ride from a town of half the population of Brandeis's undergraduate population. So It's very remote, but you are in the Daintree rainforest. The Daintree is the oldest primary rainforest in the entire world. So when I talk to alumni, the word they use most often to describe Australia and the Daintree is prehistoric. They talk about ferns that reach up 60 feet high. They talk about these moths that are the size of your two hands put together. As close as we can get to like a land before time of our 10 locations, Australia would be it. We've also been there for a very long time, I think since 1987. So when we do our community research night, presenting back to the community, presenting the posters, the papers, even though it's a 20-minute bus ride from a town of just 1,000 people, we'll usually have like 100 to 150 people actually show up for that night. So we're very much part of this local community. Housing-wise, it's definitely one of our more rustic locations. But if you want a semester or a long summer in the Daintree rainforest, this is one of the best options you can possibly get. So Bhutan is a program, along with Cambodia, which I'll talk about next, that I usually recommend for students who are environmental studies and they really want to study the full spectrum of environmental studies. So a typical day on the Bhutan program, you might be studying anthropology, economics, sociology, forestry, Buddhism on this program. Whereas in Australia, you might be spending an entire week just studying like fern ecosystems or the reef agriculture. So Bhutan is a very wide academic spectrum. And it's a very interesting location because you have this country that's essentially the population of Vermont, and it is the geographic size of Vermont and Connecticut put together. Yet it's located between 3 billion people, so China and India. So they are trying to figure out how to maintain this millennia-old culture of sustainability while also dealing with these pressures of globalization and modernization, internationalization, urbanization that is happening at their doorstep. It's interesting because you have these cultures and these Buddhist temples that stretch back many centuries, yet politically the country is less than 10 years old. They are switching from a Buddhist kingdom to a small-scale constitutional democracy. So you are witnessing this country being born politically. So it's really good for students who are interested in environmental studies, but also political science. It's great for environmental policy as well. Bhutan is unique in that they enshrine environmental safeguards in their constitution. So 2/3 of the country must always remain forested is actually part of the highest law of the land. So a unique location. They were the last capital city, Thimphu, to get a traffic light on the planet. And they put it in, people didn't like it. They took it out. So they're still the last capital city on the planet without a working traffic light. Cambodia, this is probably our most social sciences focused program. And compared to Bhutan, you're studying a lot of ways that things have not gone well. So Bhutan is going to be the first carbon negative country on the planet, whereas Cambodia, on a typical day, you're studying species extinction, you're studying corruption, pollution. So there are a ton of challenges that are happening in Cambodia, and there are no easy answers. So it can be difficult for a lot of students to go through the program without this like clear resolution by the end. But for a number of students, they're really looking for that challenge. The Cambodia program of all of our locations is by far our most urban. So Australia, like I said, 1,000 people. TCI, you're on an island of 1,000 people. Cambodia, you're in Siem Reap, which is close to 200,000 people. So 5-minute tuk-tuk ride into town, and you could be having coffee with folks from Argentina, from Israel, from Russia, from all around the world, even though you're on this small center in the middle of Southeast Asia. a ton of great wildlife experiences as well in Cambodia. Students on the semester program will spend a week or so at the Elephant Conservation Center, which is usually considered the best elephant conservation program in the entire world. Costa Rica is the program that probably offers the closest you can get to a liberal arts, environmental science, or studies education, in that you are really studying sort of like the highlights of all of our programs here in Costa Rica. So we have incredibly dynamic ecosystems, both marine and terrestrial. You have the social aspect, you have the ecology aspects to the program. You're studying a lot of how things have gone in the right direction. Costa Rica, after Bhutan, will be the next country to be carbon neutral or negative. But at the same time, you have increased tourism and urbanization, a lot of national parks. The roads are slowly encroaching upon them, which is disturbing a lot of like wildlife, bird life, which is all part of what the students study, how to balance the amazing ecosystems of Costa Rica, while also being able to welcome folks in to experience those ecosystems and benefit the local communities and the economy. It's pretty cool. At the center, we have a Rainforest Alliance farm. So if you like getting your hands dirty and you like volunteering a little bit, you can actually work at the farm at the center. A lot of your meat, your veggies, even your morning orange juice will be coming from produce that's grown right outside of your dorm room window. Panama we call surf and turf. So within 30 seconds of waking up, you can be boom, right there in the Caribbean Ocean. Within 30 seconds of waking up at the center, you can be in the Panamanian rainforest. So you're studying sort of like the full spectrum of ecosystems on this program. Compared to Turks and Caicos, which is like the other sort of marine focused program, Panama only offers snorkeling, whereas TCI, you would be able to do scuba diving. So only snorkeling in Panama, but the variety of ecosystems that you can find on this program is really second to none. One of the cool excursions that students do, they actually witness the sun rising over the Caribbean Ocean. They make their way through Panama on this long excursion, through some of the wettest places on Earth to some of the driest places on Earth, and actually end the day watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. Panama is good, maybe not for this immediate semester as a result of the pandemic, but there's a really heavy social aspect to the program. So where we are in Bocas, you can see sort of our location there, this little island off the coast of northern Panama, is the sort of hub of a lot of indigenous groups. So students are working with a lot of the indigenous groups outside of Bocas on how they balance tourism, how they balance the modernization of their country while maintaining their own practices. Tanzania is one of our two wildlife programs, both in East Africa, the other one being Kenya. If you go to Tanzania for a semester, you actually go to Kenya for 2 weeks. You go to Kenya for a semester, you actually go to the Tanzania Center for 2 weeks. Our programs sort of cross each other on the highway. The Tanzania program is unique in that you are right next door to some of the great national parks of Africa. So you are a 20-minute Land Rover or Land Cruiser ride away from Lake Manyara, 30 minutes away from Ngorongoro Crater, a few hours away from the Serengeti, where you spend a week camping on the program. So wildlife in the national park system is right at your doorstep on the program. I remember visiting just over a year ago, and about 10 minutes away from the center, we had to stop on the road because giraffes and zebras were actually just crossing the road right in front of us. But again, there is a lot of increased human-wildlife conflict that is happening. A lot of it as a result of climate change. So you would be studying a lot of the mechanisms people are using to minimize that conflict and have a more sustainable future, both for the farmers of the area as well as the wildlife. Typical day in the field. For any of our programs, at least half your credit hours would actually be spent outside of the classroom walls. So this would be your classroom if you went to the Tanzania program, or if you went to, say, Turks and Caicos, boom, scuba diving here in the Atlantic by these coral formations, that would be your classroom. So the last program I'll talk about is the TCI program, Turks and Caicos. You are on the absolute edge of the Atlantic Ocean. You could wake up and be swimming amongst these coral formations within a minute, really on any given day. It is the Atlantic, but it's not what you're used to in New England. It's completely like very warm water. We went down there a few years ago, went diving, I think 5 times. And in 5 years of traveling, diving, snorkeling, it was the most amazing marine ecosystems that I'd ever seen. In many locations, you could see clear to the bottom, 60 feet, yet these coral formations would rise up almost to the surface. So you felt like you were floating over these polychromatic mountain ranges. We saw sharks that were 6 to 8 feet long pretty much every time we went out, rays, 6-foot wingspan. Even at certain times, it's rare, but you would actually see whales off in the distance. So if you want marine studies, marine biology, want to be in the water basically every single day, I think the Turks and Caicos program is like your ideal option. And I mentioned it earlier during the research portion, but because there's only one belonger, what folks from TCI are called, with an environmental PhD, there's not a ton of research that's being done in the country, even though it's very needed. So the School for Field Studies Research Center that you would be a part of here is very much like the environmental think tank of the nation. So we get those government ministers flying in from Grand Turk to hear about the research at the end. And then that student research, while we're not in the position to impose anything, but that research and that data actually impacts national policy. So it has impacted in the past the locations of marine protected zones. It's impacted the whether they have an export ban on conch meat. It's impacted whether they cut back on the fishing of grouper. So again, on any of these programs, like this TCI program, your research, even after you come back to Brandeis, continues to have a lasting and positive impact. And that's part of our mission. That's what we've been trying to do for 40 plus years. So with that, I will turn it over if you have any questions. One I got recently was which one has been popular with the Brandeis students. I think Bhutan has. I think Brandeis students really love sort of like the unique atmosphere that Bhutan offers, as well as the ability to really study a ton of different aspects of environmental science and studies.
Yeah, that's definitely a question that I've gotten recently. I was thinking another one that some folks have asked is, what is the kind of housing situation like in different places, and what does it look like in terms of being in kind of like that cohort model? What's like kind of the daily life interaction between like you and your peers?
Yeah, it's a good question. You are definitely, no one's going to have like a single room. So in Australia, the dorm rooms might be 4 to 6, TCI 2 to 4. So, so I would say for most students, you have to be willing. It's actually being in the Amazon rainforest for 3 months is not the difficult part. It's being amongst other people for 3 months in very close proximity without in some locations like a very easy way to escape. That can be a little more tricky. We're a very structured study abroad program. So for a good 6 days a week, you are, there is going to be some kind of like scheduled programming. That said, most of our students, they might be a little wary by that fact, but when they go in the program, they actually come out of it really seeing the benefit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we have heard great things, and we've been lucky to have some study abroad ambassadors in recent years who have really spread the word about SFS programs. So
Definitely.
we hope that we will get to see more people applying to them. But yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or also if you want to follow up with us afterwards, we are having all day drop-ins tomorrow. If you want to check in with a study abroad and advisor and talk through possible options, or you can always feel free to make an appointment with us as well. But thanks so much, Devin, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure. Have a good day, everyone.
You too.